Jumped that bloody fence. 3 years too early. Ridiculous thing to do. Should have done it now. Look after her, won't you?
Agnes?
Your mother. She might suffer from Simeon's sense of justice. Nothing more unfair, you know. Sense of justice. What's happening? The world outside?
Nothing very much. There's a new government. Leslie Titmus won Hartscombe.
Leslie Titmus? An MP? I think it's a good time for me to go. Look after her, won't you? I should like to have stayed on till Friday. Mrs. Beasley cooks fish pie on Friday.
Marvellous fish pie.
Yes. Do you mind if I take the records?
No, they're yours. Everything's yours.
Well, you gave him some of them. I mean, if you want to keep them.
No, please, you take them.
Is that what he really wanted?
What?
Worsfield Crematorium. No music, no prayers, just nothing.
Yes, that's what he wanted.
Why? Do you think your father feels done out of the funeral?
No, no, of course not.
Well, if you're sure.
I'm sure. Everything's yours.
We can agree. If you want to live here, I mean, if it would help with the practice.
It would.
Isn't that up to the lawyers?
What are you going to do now?
I suppose work, that's the main thing.
Well, we'd better get back to London.
Bye.
Bye, Fred. The new book's got away with it.
What?
The Myth of Happiness, my new book, remember? Ben Bugler sent me the New York Review. Bloody great article. Socking great caricature of the author.
I'm glad.
Do you want to read it?
I said I'm glad.
Sorry. It's just that the new book's got away with it. Thinking about your father?
My mother. Died in active service, shopping in Oxford Street. She and my father quarrelled, of course. But always the same bedroom. Always. He came back from the war, and they brought me home from school. I was only 8. We were together like an old married couple. In the old days, his illness came between us like another woman. He was ashamed of it. He didn't want me to see him. When I was younger, when I was living above the surgery with my father, I felt so happy and safe. I could really enjoy anything awful. Now I'm so grateful for anything a bit pleasant. It's pathetic.
For God's sake. I've tried to make you happy. I have.
Yeah, I know.
I've given up anyone else. I've given up having anything to do with anyone else.
I never thought I'd develop into the kind of person anyone had to give things up for.
going to ask you to be sensible about this.
Oh, what have I got to be sensible about?
The new project. Lonnie Hope will be working on it. Well, she's got to do her job.
Poor Lonnie.
What do you mean?
Didn't you take her to that literary lunch in Manchester?
Well,
Well, other girls get trips to the south of France or Venice. Poor old Lonnie got a room full of old ladies in hats in Manchester. Grapefruit segments and chicken and tinned peas. Listening to you talking about yourself.
look, she's just doing her usual job on Simcox, England.
Yeah, and manning the phone 24 hours a day just in case you get the chance to ring her up. It's a tough assignment, isn't it? Being the other woman in your life. Francesca! Come along!
They like the bread, Mummy.
Did they?
This is very funny. Sorry, we're late. We've only just finished filming.
We? Hello.
Lonnie, I brought her back for a drink. She's going to type out a bit of the script for tomorrow.
We met the last time we were filming with Henry. I'm Lonnie.
Yes, I know.
Campari soda, Lonnie?
Henry knows what I like.
Apparently.
I hope you don't mind me turning your front room into an office. How's Francesca?
Asleep, I sincerely hope.
Oh, well, I bought her this little present.
Lonnie found that marvellous clown for Francesca.
It's just something I happened to notice in King's Road.
Really? How amusing. Perhaps I'll give it to her in the morning.
Oh, I really needed that.
Drink, darling.
Hardly any water.
I say, I really do like what you've done to your front room. It's so homely. What gorgeous cushion covers. Are they antique?
Henry's mother gave them to us. They're from the rectory.
Oh, Henry's been telling me all about his parents. The rector sounds an absolute sweetie.
Lonnie's going to meet Mother and Father. We're filming at the rectory.
Your father was a doctor, wasn't he?
Yes.
Henry was telling me how your father and his father were always arguing.
Oh, he said that, did he?
Oh, in the nicest possible way, of course.
I'd hardly describe my father as nice.
Oh, I'm sure he was, if you're anything to go by.
You think I'm nice, do you?
Right. Lonnie, let's get on with the script.
Henry's really marvellous in this film, you know. He does it so naturally.
Well, it's something that's always come naturally to him. Talking about himself.
These are my roots, here in a village, set in a valley, in the heart of the English countryside. A village with a church and a pub, where I've been drunk many times on my family's beer and listened to my father's sermons for almost as long as I can remember. There was one evening in particular, I remember it very well.
You don't mind me stopping you, do you? Just for a minute. You see, we're filming.
Rapston Rectory, where I grew up. That was my bedroom window there. You see, it has a fine view of the churchyard. I could see the whole of village life from that window. The children brought for christening, and the old people brought for funerals. I suppose that was why I was never really convinced by the facile optimism of the welfare state, and all the talk of the right to work, the right to strike, the right to happiness. The only undisputed right anyone has is to 6 feet of earth here under the cedars in Rapston churchyard.
It's not a cedar.
Cut!
Just thought you'd like to know.
Can we have a little quiet, please? Lonnie.
You can drive on now.
John, 1 moment.
It's a horse chestnut. I thought Mother would have told you.
Thanks very much. Can't you see I'm trying to work?
Are you? I thought you were talking to yourself.
Very amusing, Fred.
Family well?
as well as can be expected. Do you mind if we carry on?
Please do.
Mommy, are you coming?
I'm sorry. I told you. I really can't enjoy anything awful anymore. When it was over, it was extraordinary. It's almost as though it had never happened. Sometimes I try to remember what it was like, living with Henry. I almost felt sorry for him, thinking of all those lies he had to tell. You know, I don't think I got to know much more about him than you did about your friend. What was her name? Mrs. Weston?
Wixted. That ended rather badly. Come to think of it, it had something vaguely to do with Leslie Titmuss.
Good God, she didn't fall for Leslie.
No, of course not. Don't think he went in for that sort of thing. No, it was just something I discovered at a party. You weren't there, were you?
Which party?
The party the Fanners gave. The first time Leslie got into government.
No.
In a rare moment of common sense, I say a rare moment, Mr. Heath has decided to include Rapston Valley in his government.
But what is it exactly, Leslie? Under-Secretary for Waterworks. We shall have to see you about the drains.
Parliamentary Under-Secretary for Advanced Technology, Grace.
What a lot you've learned since we used to get you to cut the metals.
I'll always be grateful, Mrs. Simcox. I'll always remember.
Oh, I shouldn't bother. We didn't wait for someone to be made Under-Secretary to the Ministry of Waterworks. I remember, we didn't need an excuse like that to have a party. I'm sure you do, Grace.
Splendid fellow, Heath. Of course, now Leslie will have to give up his directorship. And control of Hartscombe Enterprises. We'll have a chance to buy him out.
I think we should.
We can't lose, not the way the property market's going. Do you think we could bear life without Leslie Titmuss? I think we could manage to be very brave about it.
I've never seen Leslie before in the ancestral surroundings. Doesn't go with his image, really.
His image?
And my firm does PR for Hartscombe Enterprises. We've taken on Leslie's political profile as well. You know, gritty, man of the people, all that sort of rubbish. Good thing there's no press about. He ought to be the Young Businessman of the Year do at the new Worsfield Motor Inn, not swigging champagne up at the Manor. You've known Leslie a long time, have you?
Since we were children.
I imagine he's changed a lot since then.
Oh, no. Hardly at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well done, Titmuss.
Hello. Thank you so much. Good luck. Your name. Thank you very much. Thank you. Would you excuse me a moment?
We always hoped our Simon would follow Malley into the BBC. When the crunch came, they had nothing for him.
No.
I've got to hand it to Simon. Sooner than hang around about the house, he's gone into window cleaning.
Window?
With Gary Kitson.
Uh-huh.
Mind you, it isn't exactly what we had in mind when we sent him to Bedale's.
No.
I'm sorry we haven't been to church recently.
Oh, that's quite all right, Mrs. Mellard Green. I'd not noticed.
Oh, we'd love to go, of course, but the young aren't the least interested. It is such a very difficult time for young people, isn't it?
It usually is. Excuse me.
We will come to church, I promise you. Maybe Christmas?
I'll be selling my shares in Hartscombe Enterprises. Luckily, they'll fetch a pretty good price on the open market.
I don't think you need bother about the open market, Leslie. Magnus and I are prepared to take you over. Isn't that right, Magnus?
We were just talking about it, actually. We could offer you a fair price.
Oh, I wouldn't put my own demands too high, but I've got to keep my family in the estates they're accustomed to.
So far as your wife's concerned, I understand that means sauce sandwiches.
I mean my family.
Don't worry about them, Leslie. We're prepared to buy you out with a substantial payment.
More than you've ever dreamt of getting your hot little hands on. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Of course, it would have to be deferred.
Oh.
You wouldn't expect Reddy's, would you?
Haven't you got a future interest you could raise a bit on? If you're short of cash, Magnus.
Look, you fellows, let's not talk about that now, We're having a party. Too bad your old man couldn't join us. How was Doughty?
Daddy doesn't get out much nowadays. Red Simcox says it's depression. He's given him a handful of pills for it.
I'm terribly sorry to hear that. You will give Doughty my best wishes, won't you? After all, he kept the seat warm for me all those years.
Ah, Stroeve. Doughty Percival Picton Stroeve. First Baron Stroeve of Skirfield in the county of Skirfield. Baron Doughty Percival Picton Stroeve. First Baron Skirfield in the peerage of England.
Calm down anyway.
Thank you. Will you excuse us? It was good of you to come, Rector.
I suppose I should congratulate you.
Yes. But I owe you a lot, too. Your sermons. They taught me how to make speeches. Your line about a new heaven and new earth.
I know, you used it to describe the common agricultural policy.
Yes, all speeches are much the same, aren't they?
Charlotte well?
Happy as can be, of course.
You're looking after her?
I do my best.
I'm sure you do, Leslie. I'm honestly sure you do.
Mr. Titmus, I hear that you are going to give us one of your rousing speeches.
Not me, I'm afraid.
Ah, but somebody should.
Yes, of course, somebody. Excuse me, won't you?
Oh, Rector, dear, can I ask you a question?
Wonderful face he's got. Who? That cleric over there. One talking to the old Queen.
You think so?
Get a face like that to endorse a product and you sell cannabis to nuns. Good old Church of England parson, is he? Tory party at prayer.
Actually, my father's a socialist.
Your father? What did you say your name was?
Well, I didn't, but it's Simcox. Fred Simcox.
Not Dr. Simcox. Good God, that perfectly wonderful story. So it was you, with the Christmas stocking. What a life you must lead down there at the rectory. I say, I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Wixted. Kenneth Wixted. I believe you know my wife.
That's right. Oh.
Boy, can you go downstairs and see him?
Yes. What are you doing?
I'm going to take him down.
No.
They want to see him.
Not down there. No.
He's got to get used to it, you know. Public appearances. He's up there, darling. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could all gather round for a moment, please. That's right. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Ladies and gentlemen, my lord, Lady Naboth, Sir Nicholas, Lady Fanna, everyone, may I introduce you all to a future Prime Minister, Nicholas George Titmuss.
But how did he know?
I told him, of course.
You told him?
Well, we're very honest with each other. We don't have secrets. We tell each other about everything that happens, really. You rather like secrets, don't you, Fred?
Some things are private.
Priests have secrets. And doctors. Lawyers, all those sort of people. But Kenneth's just an ad man from Golders Green. We find it works to tell each other the truth.
What about Benny?
What about him?
Mr. Benjamin K. Bugloss. Did you tell Kenneth about him, too?
Of course. Not that there's much to tell. Benny's so in love with the film business, he doesn't have much energy for anything else. He kept me on for the sake of appearances.
And Mr. Wicks did? Does he keep you on for the sake of appearances?
Not entirely. But he doesn't mind. He really doesn't mind at all. I've blown it, haven't I?
It's probably my fault.
But why?
I can't explain.
Why miss something enjoyable just because Mr. Wickstead knows about it?
I know it sounds unreasonable.
But you've got a train to catch.
Yes.
And I'm not coming with you.
Not tonight.
Or any night?
What happened about your Dr. Simcox?
He gave me my cards.
Fed up with you?
No. Fed up about you not caring about it.
He sounds a nice, old-fashioned boy.
Yes. That's exactly what he is.
Ted Heath's going to call an election. It's the Kedgeree wife.
So I understand.
Ted's going to ask the people straight out, no nonsense. Who runs the country? Do they want it run by the miners?
What's the alternative?
Us. Her Majesty's elected government. Me. And, Ted Heath, of course.
I think your Mr. Heath is making a mistake. People don't want to be asked. They put Ted Heath there to get on and deal with things like the miner strikes. They want to get on and watch their teleboxes and fill in their pools. And...
water their begonias.
Well, exactly. They don't want Mr. Heath asking them questions all the time. I think they may want to teach him a lesson.
I expect to double my majority in Hartscombe. Meanwhile, it's up to all of us to save the country.
Oh, is there going to be another war? How exciting.
We've got to take it seriously. I mean, we've got bricks in all the toilet systems, and speaking for myself, I do clean my teeth in the dark.
Well, I do hope your Mr. Heath doesn't expect Nicholas and me to take a shower together. That's all I feel.
Going to rest.
Well, it's not very entertaining down here, all this talk about bricks in lavatories.
Oh, I had a good letter today from Nicholas George's headmaster.
Nick's only 3. He hasn't got a headmaster.
Headmaster of Knucklebridge. Nick's been down since birth, of course. But, I've been writing regularly to the headmaster, keeping him in the picture. Simeon put a word in for me.
He did that, did he?
Oh, yeah. The rector's taken a considerable interest in Nick.
So, in due course, we'll be packing young Nicholas George off to Knucklebridge.
Don't you be too sure.
Of course I'm sure. You know who really governs the country. It's not Ted Heath or the miners. It's the fellows who went to Knucklebridge. So that's why Nicholas George is going to be one of them.
Okay, have you got everything?
You're the top. You're the Colosseum. You're the top. You're the Louvre Museum. You're a melody from a symphony by Strauss. You're an Ascot bonnet, a Shakespeare sonnet. You're Mickey Mouse.
You're the top. You're the top.
You're the
You're
top.
the Colosseum. You're the top.
You can trump
You're
the
the Museum.
You're the top. You're the Lady Grace. I'm a worthless check, a total wreck, a flop. But if baby I'm the bottom, you're the top. You're the top. You're Mahatma.
Hello, Mrs. Simcox.
Hello, Mr. Bulstrode. Will you get me up? Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's kind. There, it's done.
Of course, we still miss him terribly.
Do you?
We can only do our best to follow the path he marked out for us.
It's really quite disgusting how well everything grows in a churchyard. I can't get a Mrs. Sam McGreedy to grow like that at home where there's someone still alive to look at it.
I do like to see a family caring for the grave.
I expect most families have got better things to do.
Your son was here the other day. I saw him from the rectory window.
You saw Freddie?
No, your eldest son.
Henry? What on earth was he doing? No weeding.
So far as I could see, he was taking photographs.
Photographs?
Oh, yes, of the headstone, so far as I could tell, and the inscription. Well, goodbye, Mrs. S.
Oh, goodbye, Mr. Bulstrode.
Can I help you at all?
I can't think of any way you could possibly help me, Mr. Jackson Cantaloupe.
Are you very busy?
I was just going indoors.
Well, are you very busy indoors?
Of course I am. The bishop's coming to tea.
Is that true?
No. As a matter of fact, it's a thundering lie.
Do you mind if I come in?
You are in, apparently.
Didn't you get my letters?
Your letters? Oh, yes, I got them. I put them straight into the dustbin.
My dear Mrs. Simcox, but why?
Because you have nothing to say to me which could be of the slightest interest.
Oh, are we going to have a cup of tea?
Aye.
That's very thoughtful. Sometime, Mrs. Simcox, and really it can't be put off much longer, I shall have to ask you to give me a statement on the true issues in this case.
Was Simeon mad, do you mean?
We shall need to know your views, Mrs. Simcox.
Well, of course Simeon was mad.
Really?
Aren't we all? Aren't you, Mr. Jackson Cantaloupe?
Me?
I would say mad as a hatter. Writing me letters I've no desire to read. Asking me questions I've no desire to answer. Singing in those awful concerts.
I really don't see what the Worsfield choral has to do with it.
On and on. Ha ha ha
taking forever just to say one simple word, so that everyone dies of boredom? Why can't you just say hallelujah like a normal person?
The evidence we already have shows signs of increased mental instability on the part of the late rector from the end of the last war.
What evidence?
We give instances. An occasion when he appeared on the doorstep of Rapston Manor on hands and knees, trumpeting like an elephant. A time when he opened the front door to a couple seeking guidance on the Christian approach to marriage, and was seen clad in female attire.
What is that you're reading from?
A draft copy, Mrs. Simcox. Proof of your evidence. And I have another copy, of course, back in the office. Steps can always be taken to compel witnesses to come to court in the interests of justice. Good afternoon.
That's probably why you're having that particular problem.
In the interests of justice, I have to be visited by that slimy little hymn singer. Asked the most ridiculous questions about your father. Naturally, he got down on his hands and knees and trumpeted like an elephant. It was something he thought amusing.
This is a doctor's consulting room, Mother. I don't know if you remember. Please, Mr. Grimsdale, could I ask you to wait outside just for a moment?
Couldn't you prescribe something for Mr. Singing Cantaloupe? A strong dose of rat poison for preference.
Mr. Singing Cantaloupe is only doing his job.
You've got to stop, Henry. You're a doctor. You know about these things.
It would take more than a doctor to stop Henry. It would take more than a battleship armed with Exocet missiles once he's got an idea in his head. One thing would sink his case, though.
What?
If only you could give him a perfectly logical explanation of why our father left all his money to Leslie Titmuss.
It was his money, wasn't it? I suppose he could do as he liked with it.
Is Fred staying to dinner?
Our father's tombstone. You had it photographed.
Rather an important part of the evidence, if you want my opinion.
It's going to play silly buggers with my plasmon, Fred staying to dinner.
Remember the inscription?
Think I'm likely to forget? I kept my word, he said. From the Bible, I always thought.
The money wasted on your so-called education at Knuckleberry's.
Of course, it's going to mean Fred sitting next to another man. Well, I could put him next to Ronnie Archbold.
Is there anybody there, said the traveller, knocking at the moonlit door? Does that ring a faint bell?
Tell them I came and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said.
The Listeners by Walter de la Mare.
The brilliance of a well-stocked mind.
Of course, Ronnie Archbold is tremendously gay. Fred won't mind that, will he?
Have you ever considered the significance of our father choosing that quotation for his final resting place?
Have you?
The climax of megalomania. He called upon the great, inert, telly-watching, mortgage-paying, lawn-mowing masses to answer his call and accept the kingdom of equality, Christian socialism and the welfare state. The poor old father. No one answered. That's how he saw himself, you know. The great prophet rejected. The misunderstood Messiah.
Well, you're right.
Of course I'm right.
The New Jerusalem never arrived. Paradise was postponed indefinitely. He lived to discover that the worst thing about the future is that it's almost exactly like the past.
Well, then?
Do you think he was insane to hope for something better? Anyway, he didn't quote the lines about no one answering. He quoted the bit about keeping his word.
I was just going to set those out on the coffee table.
Perhaps he gave his word to someone.
You mean Leslie Titmuss? If Titmuss tries to say that,
Your solicitor.
Our solicitor.
Your solicitor. He's been pestering Mother. She'll never give evidence.
Well, she may have to.
Would you do that to her? Force her?
You're not saying this out of concern for Mother, are you? She stands to gain as much as any of us. You just can't stand up to a fight. And one thing you can say for the terrible Titmuss, he's a fighter. You couldn't even fight me years ago. You had to cave in over Agnes.
Is Fred staying to dinner or isn't he?
He isn't.
Going to sample my ex-wife's experiments with herbs down the wrong end of the Fulham Road.
You know about that, do you?
You better believe, Frederick, there isn't much I don't know about you.
Smoked salmon. Oh, ages since we've had smoked salmon, isn't it, Magnus?
Rather a while. You quacks must be making a fortune out of the National Health.
Oh, hardly.
What do you expect to come into all those lovely Simcox shares if you win the case about your father's will?
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Oh, really? Oh, well, absolutely anything we can do to help scupper the toad Titmus. Isn't that right, Jennifer?
Anything we can do to scupper the toad.
Anything at all.
You were in business with Leslie, weren't you?
Hartscombe Enterprises. Her name's engraved on my heart.
Was he ever in need of money?
Huh. That's rich, isn't it, Magnus?
Look, you remember when Leslie first got into government? He was Under Secretary for Public Urinals or some damn thing or other.
Advanced technology.
Jennifer knows all about it. Anyway, he had to get out of Hartscombe Enterprises right at the top of the property boom. Well, we couldn't go wrong at the time. Offices, houses, blocks of flats, they're going up like mushrooms. And we were coining the stuff. So Christopher Kempenflatt and I were delighted to buy the toad out, even though we had to pay through the nose for it.
In cash?
That was it. We didn't want to deplete the company, so I borrowed a load on my expectation of the Picton estate.
The house?
Half Scurfield, the woodlands, a couple of farms in hand, the whole bloody boiling.
The whole caboose. Well, Daddy was going into a state of depression at the time about the peerage he never got. I knew it'd all be mine in pretty short order. And I'd pay off the mortgage out of the company profits. That's what I thought.
But Hartscombe Enterprises went broke.
Oh, no. It was worse than that. You remember when he was our accountant? You know what the toad made Christopher and me do? Only give our personal guarantee to the bank.
So, when Doughty died, as you know, Magnus had to let the entire estate go back to the mortgage company.
And you know who the principal shareholder of that little enterprise was? You can guess, can't you, Jennifer?
Oh, I'm sure he can guess.
The honourable member for Hartscombe and Worsfield South, otherwise known as the Toad. Now we're left with nothing. Oh, of course, Jennifer's got a physiotherapy. Then I fill in, part-time secretary at the golf club.
So, that's the poor, starving little brewery clerk your father left his money to. Made his will a long time ago, did he?
No. No, apparently he made it quite recently.
See those punts over there? That's the place we pushed him in the river all those years ago at the Young Conservatives' dinner dance.
Made a big mistake there, Magnus.
I know. You ought to have drowned the little bugger.
Miss Thorne, any messages?
None for you, Doctor. It's been quiet. We've had the minister on.
Who?
The cabinet minister. He wants Dr. Hardison to call on him. A domiciliary visit. A private patient, of course.
Of course. Well, if there's nothing else, I think I'll run over to Picton House myself.
He did especially ask for Dr. Hardison. Or rather, I think he did.
Think?
The minister's lost his voice. Awfully difficult for him. It seems he's due to open a debate on Tuesday. One of the very few things that he can do is to speak.
Open as wide as you can, will you? No, I'm sure you can get it wider than that.
I asked for Hardison
never have asked you to come and see me.
Why not?
With the trial coming on, wouldn't it be contempt of court or something?
Don't see why. Do we have a quarrel about anything?
Perhaps you should ask your brother.
He thinks my father was mad.
I know.
Mad to leave his money to you.
Do you agree with him?
Our difficulty is thinking of any sort of logical explanation.
It's obvious, isn't it? He was disappointed with his own family.
Open again, will you? Just take another look at those remarkably overworked tonsils.
He was always disappointed. Your brother left his wife and child for some sort of typist, didn't he? I don't imagine that went down too well at the rectory. Besides which, Henry used to be a socialist. Now he's criticizing Margaret for being soft on the unions. You read his article on Sunday?
Thought you might approve of that. Stand up.
Oh, Simeon wouldn't have.
He might have been disappointed in Henry, but that doesn't begin to explain why he should have left everything to you. I mean, you're somebody who's led a totally wasted life.
Wasted? My life wasted. I've worked 18 hours a day ever since I can remember. What do you mean, wasted?
Cough for me. Just cough.
Ever since I was a kid. Ever since I cut your nettles. I've been determined to make something of myself.
What went wrong? Now, take deep breaths. I mean, you were set for life, weren't you? You could have done a very decent job as head of the accounts department at the brewery, getting the beer circulated efficiently. Could have done a lot of good in the world.
Look, I asked for hardest.
Turn round. You couldn't stick to it, could you? You had to go into property, turning shoe shops into offices and doing no possible good at all to anyone. And getting into the cabinet. Well, where's that got us all? Back to where we were before the war. Back to wasted lives and no jobs. Back to the years before Simeon made his well-meaning offer of paradise. Now, why on earth would our father have left everything to a person like that? Do your shirt up. I'll write you out a prescription.
I always thought Henry was the bloody superior one. Always on television, always writing about himself, knowing everything, laying down the law. Henry's got nothing. Nothing at all on you. You're the one for arrogance, aren't you? Don't do anything. Don't commit yourself to anything. It's all far beneath you, isn't it, Dr. Fred? Business, politics, property, writing books, even getting married and giving birth to another human being. All that's far beneath your dignity.
I didn't say that.
You're so pure, aren't you, Dr. Frederick? So pure and uncorrupted. Doing your rounds in your tweed jacket and crumpled corduroy trousers. The decent, quiet country doctor who can even write out prescriptions without believing in them. We all know why Simeon cut you out of his will.
Do we? I'll leave this here, but of course you'll probably get better just as quickly without it.
That Christmas in the rectory.
That Christmas?
The respectable country doctor tucked up in bed with somebody else's wife when the simple-minded rector was delivering a Christmas stocking.
Who told you that? Oh, Mr. Wicks did, I suppose. Isn't he in charge of your image? Well, at least I've done something for which you ought to be profoundly grateful. You seem to have completely recovered the power of speech.
The name's Nubble. Oh, hello, Simcox.
What on earth are you doing here?
The Creevy column.
What?
It's what I'm doing now, old chap. You know what the name of the game is at this present moment in time?
Coffee bars, boutiques, and flower power accessories.
Gossip. People love it. All the truth about everyone you'll never meet. I'm interviewing Titmus. What have you been doing?
Much the same.
Minister, so awfully decent of you to see me.
You two know each other.
Of course. We were at school together.